Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Well. It seems like NATO lost, and it seems like Russia was not kneeled in Ukraine, theater. Now, this is the biggest challenge that Russia faced and the biggest wave that Russia was able to surf on. It is kind of strange that NATO, with all its 30, 40, 50 allies and vassal states, together with the European Union and whomever else, were incapable of outspend and destroy the Russians, the poor Russians, that we were told that their economy is of the size of Italy. It seems like the Russians, besides having this, also have this. So let me show you 4 articles, actually three, that would not suggest, I think, give us a big, okay, wink that they're about to tell Zelensky, cut the crap, time's up. Here, we're going to start with the Brits, because, you know, the Telegraph is trusted piece of news, right? News media outlet. Germany and United States, and I'm quoting, will pressure Zelensky to negotiate with Russia, end quote. This information comes from Bild, a German newspaper. So Germany and US will pressure. Germany and US will put pressure on Ukraine to negotiate with Russia by scaling back weapons deliveries in what would be a major blow to Kiev's hopes of victory, German media reported on Friday. Bild, a German tabloid, reported what it described as a quote-unquote secret German-American plan to force Ukraine's hand on opening peace talks, citing sources in the German government. Well, that would imply that Zelensky is not listening, is not following orders, or Zaluzny. Or maybe Zaluzny is following, but Zelensky is not following, or one of these guys. So this is from the Telegraph. I will read you the plan that the Bild said, but I would just want to go to the other two media outlets so we can build some credibility here. This comes from the new Voice of Ukraine, which is going to cite the same source, Bild. US and Germany, quote-unquote, plan to force Zelensky to negotiate, end quote, through choking off arms supplies. And then the third one from the Russians, obviously, celebrating today, the November 24th, 2023, US and Germany hoping to force Zelensky to peace. Bild. The media outlet claims Berlin and Washington are providing Kiev with just enough weapons to hold the line, but not to regain ground. Well, I don't think so. Let's go back to the first ones, because they're going to talk about the plan. You know, the plan. Under the plan, Washington and Berlin would supply Ukraine with sufficient weapons and armor to hold the current front line, but not enough to retake occupied territory. This is exactly what these guys took from Bild, and from these guys are from the Telegraph, right there. The hope to push Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, towards the negotiation table with Vladimir Putin, the Russian leader. Zelensky should, and I'm quoting, realize that it can't go on like this. Why not? If you're winning, keep winning. A German government source told Bild, referring to Ukraine's stalled counteroffensive against Russians, probably, in the east of Russia. And I'm quoting, he needs to, of his own free will, turn to face his nation and explain that there is a need to negotiate. German government sources also told Bild that the White House shared Germany's view on the need to shift the focus from weapon deliveries to negotiations. There was no response to the report from the White House as of Friday night, Washington has repeatedly vowed to support Ukraine's efforts to expel Russian troops. Well, they said many things and they did the opposite. Remember, they said they will not send this, they will not send that to Ukraine, and they did. Bild noted that as the largest providers of armor and defense to Ukraine forces, a request from Germany and the US would have to be taken seriously by Mr. Zelensky. Germany's government did not immediately respond to the Bild report, which will frustrate officials in Kiev as they continue to strive for a full military victory over Russia, including the recapture of occupied territory. Now, I told you that that's, a illusion that they will destroy Russia and will win. The only way NATO could have caused problems to Russia would have been if NATO troops would have just bring their own troops directly facing like a real war the Russians. But I think the Russians would have used nuclear weapons. I have no doubt that they would say, you know what, I don't think we can win this one, and I think the consequences will be too major for our people, our nation. Therefore, we're going to just say one step further east and we're going to drop some on your capitals. And I think they are aware of this. I told you, the Western weasels, I'm talking about these guys in charge of us, have much more to lose than Putin, Lavrov, Zakharova, Peskov, Shoigu, and others. Why? Because those guys are still in control of most of the world, with political power, with economic power, with military power. So why would they want to go and see Moses, some of them Jesus, some of them nothing, because of Zelensky or Ukrainians? Nah. So that was the eventual, final, ultimate risk, a nuclear war. Now, what could be next? The West would blackmail if Zelensky doesn't follow order, or Zaluzny, which I don't think is the case. I think they want to make it a soft landing. That's what I think. They want to make it, and they don't want to recognize defeat. I'm talking about NATO. NATO wants to say, well, we were not involved. We were just helping a little bit here and there with about $200 billion in a year and a half with military and everything we got. Not everything, but a lot of things. And it was the Ukrainians fighting all along. And the Russians obviously won, or at least the Ukrainians realized that they could go on like this forever. And in order to save lives, they decided, because they're human, not like others, and they decided to stop the carnage. And unfortunately, they have to accept defeat. They will not say, well, NATO was incapable of doing this. They didn't go full force. Neither did the Russians. Why? They have a potential of what? About 30 million people that could be brought to arms tomorrow and go over there. Then they have AK-47s, and just by the sheer number, they could just roll over to Warsaw. Warsaw is in Poland, by the way. Anyway, my friends, what's next? This is what's going to happen. The Russians, if, and I foresee that happening, the Ukrainians will say, okay, let's talk. The Russians will get everything out of the four out of 4 reasons why they invaded. They invaded unprovoked, but they had some reasons. So anyway, for their national security, they invaded, but that's not a provocation. So they will have Ukraine not a NATO member state, will probably with the Western countries agree on a cohabitation or a co-leadership. The Russians will remain with whatever they took out of this war. The government in Kiev will be gone, the denazification and demilitarization. All those things will be accomplished on the Russian side. Now I don't know what NATO, which is Al Capone, will get out of that, but probably we'll say, well, we'll have some control in Ukraine as well. Maybe not as much. We're going to sign some papers, which even in case you run out of toilet paper, you can use them. A little bit some kind of rough or maybe sliding on your butt, but nevertheless, they will sign certain things that we will guarantee that we're not going to do this the same way we're going to do this. And it's going to take a few years just to, we're not going to be really friends right now. But within time, we're going to together. That's what's going to happen, I think. Regarding Zelensky, Zelensky is going to have a soft landing in London, Israel, or the United States of America. So did the other millionaires in charge of Ukraine. The Russians, if they stay in power, will continue their traditions and culture and their values, you know, the family values and all that. The other ones will be in between. And I hope, which I don't think is going to happen, the refugees, the Ukrainian refugees will return to Ukraine to reconstruct with the investments, limited investments from both sides, controlled investments, because you don't want to let those guys take over. The NGOs will not be functioning in Ukraine, I guarantee you that, unless the Russians will check each and every paper and will check for GS, right? George Soros, and that's it. But it's not only George Soros, there's many others. So here it is, my friends. The Americans always had the knife and the bread, so they could cut slices, always. Now he says, you know what, I'm going to put them right here. I'm just going to wait if these guys don't follow orders. Remember, next year, there will be elections in the United States of America, and they will try to use this as a big victory for the United States of America, which would probably think that bald eagle will gonna land and is gonna bring peace between these little children, Russia and Ukraine, who fought for nothing. But I don't think the Russians will allow that to happen, but nevertheless, the media here will trumpet, again, America saved us from the Fifth World War. Garbage. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.